RM Sotheby's is the world's largest collector car auction house by total sales. They are the preeminent market maker of high-quality collector cars and collections, regardless of size or complexity. By working in partnership with the Sotheby's team and its network of 80 offices in 40 countries, RM Sotheby's has established the largest client network of any collector car auction house in the world. Join the RM Sotheby's family by connecting with one of their car specialists at rmsotheby's.com or contact me directly at gstanley@rmsotheby's.com. All right, hey, it's Greg Stanley with the Collector Car Podcast. This is going to be a fun one today. I've got a guy here I've always kind of wondered about. I've seen him on Instagram. I've seen his books, and we met at Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. I said, hey, how about being on the podcast? So I'd like to welcome Ryan Brutt. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Greg. How you doing today?
Good, good. Yeah, I appreciate you being on the podcast because everybody loves a good barn find story. And it seems like you've, I don't want to say made your career out of barn finds, but you're heavily involved in finding really cool, rare collector cars kind of in the wild. So if you would, before maybe we get to a couple examples of that, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do from a day-to-day perspective in the car world.
No problem. My name's Ryan Brutt, and I call myself the Auto Archaeologist or the Automotive Archaeologist. That's another long story in and of itself, but I document cool cars in neglected situations. So barn finds, junkyards, farm fields, and everything in between. I do the whole spectrum. As long as it's a cool car, I'm interested in something. I do bleed Mopar blue, but I appreciate everything. I've found Ferraris, I found Duesenbergs, I found Hemi Cudas, Daytonas, Yanko Camaros, in sad situations. I wrote for like Hot Rod Magazine for 7 years. I had a column in there. I've written for Hemmings. I've written for about 20 different magazines. Most of them don't even exist anymore, but I also do
Right.
online stuff. I'm on YouTube. That's been my big push for the last few years is my YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and all of them make a little bit of money, so it keeps me going.
Oh, that's awesome. That's incredible. So, for those of you who have been following me for a while, especially if you're on my newsletter, you know, I like barn finds. I like finding cool stuff. And the one I shared, I think it was called My Grandma's Mustang, was the e-news blast. But when I was 13 years old, I found a 67 Mustang GT, not a GTA,
No.
fastback across the street from my grandmother in the middle of nowhere, Inverness, Florida. And I went back December of 2023 and found the same car 40 years later.
Wow. Well, that
And it,
just goes to show you that there is still stuff out there to be found
yes,
or
and
refound.
he's been saying he's going to restore it for 40 years now, and it's just falling further into neglect. So if you're watching on YouTube, I've shared a few of those pictures so you can see 1983 to 2023.
Wow.
But yeah, how did you get into that? Was it kind of the same thing that I was doing? Like you're just a car guy and you think it's cool to find the rare stuff, whether or not you can afford it at the time, or even want to afford it, but just like, you know, discovering buried treasure. Is that the draw?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's the hunt for cool stuff. And no, I wasn't a car guy at all, even into my teen years. I even have the grill out of the car that flipped the switch in my head. Back
What
in,
was
I
that
think it
car?
was, yeah, it's really crazy, the whole thing. I wasn't into cars. Like, you know, where they were an appliance. My first car was a 1990 Ford Taurus station wagon. That's how much I cared about cars at the time. And unfortunately, someone had stolen the radio out of my car. It was a tape deck. I'm like, why in the 2000s would someone steal a tape deck out of a station wagon? Whatever. But my dad's like, hey, I have a friend who puts in CD players at this repair shop in Chicago. If you have all you need is $100 and he'll put it in for you. You just got to take it down there and sit around for a few hours and they'll put it in. I'm like, okay, fine. You got the money at the time. So I drive down there and they're like, yeah, it's going to be like 5 hours. I'm like, great. Okay. And the shop's really cool. Like they used to work on buses and such. So there's a big, huge, long bay in the back with in between. And then there was 4 or 5 slot bays on the other side of this wall, but there was a little connecting area between them. And in this connecting area, there was a car buried in just garbage. Like there was a Mercedes hardtop, you know, like a convertible hardtop that's sitting on it. There was old carpeting. And I'm looking at this car and I'm like, man, this is a really cool car. I had no idea what it was. And I'm like, you know what? Let me ask the guys. And I wrote down what it was. I left. And then I had to go back and drop something off for them because they worked with my dad. I had a digital camera. The very first, do you remember those Sony digital cameras with the
Oh yeah.
floppy disk on them?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could take 7 pictures with that thing. So I did. I took 7 pictures with the car. It ended up being a 71 CUDA 383. It was originally a red car, but it was painted black at the time. It had gilled fenders. They had the cheese grater. It was a 71 CUDA, so it had all the options. The dual scoop hood. It had big tires. I'm like, man, this thing is so cool. I'm like, I could totally get into this. And my dad knew in 1970 bought a Hemi Cuda, so I knew like the provenance behind it. And I couldn't buy that car. About 20 years later, I found the car again, and I was able to buy the original grill out of it. It's in my garage. So that's another story. But that literally was the moment that flipped the switch in my head. It was like, if I found this car by accident in Chicago, what else could I find that's cool like this with just a little bit of effort? And my dad was a car guy, and he had car friends. I'm like, oh yeah, we got a Chevy Nomad in the back of our shop that's been there for 40 years. Come and check a look at what? Take a look at that. Oh, I've got a 66 GTO convertible sitting in my garage for, 30 years, just like your Mustang. And that just got the ball rolling. And I had this digital camera and I was taking pictures, and it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you, I think I probably messaged you on Instagram, I don't know, 2 years ago or so, because I run across some cool BarnFinds stuff that I think it'd be fun to share with your folks. And I have to be careful because as a car specialist for RM Sotheby's, I obviously don't want to share anything that's private, right?
Oh, of
I would
course.
only share stuff that people have agreed to or it's already out there. And I've run across, there's actually a video on my YouTube channel, a wrecked AC Cobra. I've run into a Lamborghini Countach, a bunch of Hemis, some really, really cool stuff that I can share, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know, you're in a unique situation because you're not making money selling cars day to day. So you can probably share a little bit more than the average person. How do you track this stuff down? Well, first off, what's your biggest find? Like, what's the biggest thing that you're like, is it a Hemi Cuda? Is it something different?
Depends on the spectrum. I've found a Ferrari 70, I forget exactly, a 70 Ferrari. I think it was a GTO. No, not GTO.
Oh, the 288
No,
GTO?
no, no, no. What's the one? The Daytona. A Ferrari Daytona
Oh, wow.
sitting behind a dentist shop in a shed. He was a dentist, and he owned. He was all about the Ferrari life, but he didn't understand it. So he bought this Daytona, and he drove it for like a year or two, and then it was coming up on maintenance, and he didn't realize that the maintenance on the car was going to be like more than the value of the car. And so he just parked it, saying, "Oh, I'll fix it someday," and then it sat there for 40 years. I don't know what happened with that. I drove by a few years ago, and the whole area was now like houses.
Mm,
But I found everything from that. I found a Duesenberg.
really?
That's a rare one. If you're talking about rarity, I helped find the RTS CUDA. I was involved in that discovery a few years ago, which is one of one. It's the only one built like that. I helped. But if you're talking about production cars, by the numbers, there's a guy out in Iowa. He has a 69 Charger 500 Hemi 4-speed car in blue with a blue interior, and it is rough, but it is one of like two built in that combination. And you see them going at Mecum for $1 million, $500,000, in perfect condition. The Yenko Camaro I just found. That is one that was literally a lost Yenko. We documented it, and we were able to fully verify the numbers and get all the historical information on it. I know they made a few of those, but still, a real Jack Douglas Yenko Camaro, they don't pop up all the time. So Shelby's, I found tons of Shelby. I found probably the rarest 67 Shelby that's not one of the experimental ones. An original owner Ford engineer bought new a 67 Shelby GT500 and had a stack of paperwork that thick because it was such a piece of junk. He was typing back and forth to Shelby America saying all the problems, and he had paperwork for 6 months, a year, whatever it was, before they transferred ownership, and it's been sitting in a one car shed for 40 years. It's like when you're looking at it and you're understanding the history and what's there, it's so rare and so incredible, that kind of history. And then I found Hemikudas and all kinds of cool stuff like that too.
So if the listeners are listening to you and thinking the way I'm thinking, I've got dibs. Now, I'd love to find out, like, what happened to that Daytona? Is that 67 GT 350 or 500 still there? You know, like how do we bring it out of the darkness? You know, how do we get it to the right person that's going to restore it and save it or preserve it if it is possible to preserve it, right?
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is when I find these cars, I always tell the owner, I'm not there to buy your car. I'm there for the history. I'm there to, like an archaeologist. I want to document what is there. And I don't share who you are or where you are unless you want it out there. I only want the world that exists around this car. And why is your Hemi Cuda sitting in your backyard for 40 years? Is it because you got married in it? Is it because you brought your daughter home from the hospital in it? Why is this extremely rare car that could possibly change your entire life rotting away in your backyard? And usually that's a very good story to tell.
Yeah, so my first barn find I ever found, the kind of barn find, I was in college at Florida State in Tallahassee, Florida, and I was Mustang Shelby crazy. There's no doubt. And I was driving. I could not find it. If I think I tried to find it like 10 years later, and the car was gone. But in a guy's backyard, you know, chain link fence, there was a car covered up with a tarp, and it was the way the tarp was positioned. And I swear I have the picture somewhere, but I cannot find it. The way the tarp was positioned, you could see the rocker panel that said GT 350.
Oh, that's crazy.
Dark green. And it was, I found out later because I knocked on the guy's door. It was a 68 convertible that had a front end damaged radiator, a couple different things. It's been sitting there ever since. And as a college kid, you know, I don't have any money, zero, maybe $60 if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And I knocked on that door hoping it was like, oh, just, if you'll take that off my hands, you can have it, you know. But when he opened the door, on the wall was like a vintage picture of an AC Cobra on a racetrack. I'm like, all right, this guy knows what he's got.
Boy.
There's no way, right?
Yeah.
The car I currently have in my garage, the 65 Mustang Fastback Hypo, but I found that during Amelia Island Car Week 2023, downtown Fernandina Beach. The whole car world is there. And it's a situation where I didn't see the car. I saw another car in the guy's garage, and it turns out it was a 6-cylinder Mustang. And I didn't see the car that was in the tarp on the driveway. Yeah. And he called me because I left my card, and he's like, "That's just a 6-cylinder. You know, it's under the tarp, right?" I'm like, "No, I don't know." He's like, "That's a hypo fastback." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And ended up buying it a year later. It wasn't for sale. It wasn't even running driving, and I still have that car today.
Oh,
and
that's
then the
awesome.
last one I'll mention is I've never found a Ferrari that's worth noting, but there's a Ferrari. I would guess it's a 328 GTS in a field, believe it or not, in Napa Valley.
Really? That's a weird one.
Yeah, like I was just driving there like 3 years ago before the Monterey weekend, and I'm like, I think I just saw a Ferrari in a field, and there was like a Bronco and an M5. And anyways, I'll throw the picture up here. But yeah, that's just amazing. So how do you, like today, do people come to you and say, you know, I got a barn find I think you'd like to see? Do you still do the detective work? Do you drive around? What do you do?
I do a little bit of it all. I really don't have a life, so I'll explain a little bit. But I started out doing that. I would literally just my family we have a camper in a campground up in Wisconsin. It's about 2 hours away. So every weekend I would take a different route up there. I would go to a small town and, you know, go to the local restaurant, or I'd go to the old parts store. And as I say, I talk to the old graybeards and be like, hey, you know, this is what I do. You know, I just take pictures. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, you know, Bob down the road, he had a, you know, 69 Mustang sitting in his backyard for 20 years. I wonder if it's probably still there. Go tell Bob that, you know, Nick at the parts store. And so I'd go down to Bob, and Bob would be like, oh, yeah, that's a 69 Mach 1 sitting in my backyard. And then, oh, yeah, you know, Steve down at blah, blah, he had a GTO. That thing was fast. Man, that thing. And they would just spitball it. I would just go from spot to spot shooting these cars. Eventually, as things evolved, I still do that. I still love hunting because you never know what you're going to find. I've legitimately found Hemi cars and Shelbys and all kinds of cool stuff just by talking to people at car shows or events or whatever. But nowadays, I much more technologically advanced. Every lead and every story I get, I put it on an online map. It's like a subset of Google Maps. It's not Google; it's called Mango Maps. But I started off on Google Maps called Google My Maps, so you can pin information. So let's say, like I said, Steve at 12345 Street has a Yenko Camaro sitting here. Boop, you put it on the map. And then if I'm traveling somewhere, if I'm going to Indianapolis or going to St. Louis or whatever, I can look on my map and be like, oh, these 7 things are on my route, and I can, bounce around and hit up a whole bunch. And also you can do colors and different icons. So if I do hit up one and it pans out, I change the color of it so I know I don't have to go back there, but it's still on my map. So it's a combination of a little bit of everything nowadays, with people sending me stuff because of my columns and multiple magazines and online resources to my YouTube. So I get feeds from all over the place. It's just I never have enough time or money to be able to fully flesh out the map. It's usually far more condensed in what I'm able to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. That's really cool. It's funny you say that because on my Google Maps, I know I have probably 3 cars that I've saved over the years. Like one's a 65 Mustang GT sedan, nothing special, but it looked like a real GT, and we were just driving through wine country and, Kentucky. And I just, oh crap, we can't stop now. Let me put it on the map. Maybe I can get back here one day, something like that.
Exactly.
Tell me about the Duesenberg. How'd that pan out?
That, I didn't get much on it. I was allowed, it was in an old, I'm guessing it was a horse stable at the time, 100 years ago. And there had been trees that had grown up around it. The doors couldn't even, like, they were sliding doors, like on all, like, basically you couldn't move them. So you could only look in through the side window. And the guy was super secretive. He's like, you can take pictures, don't tell people what's going on. But I have no idea. I know it was a 4-door with a soft top, Duesenberg, big solid wheels, and he's like, his family had inherited it from another family locally had it, and they didn't want it anymore because of some sort of mechanical issue. And so they got it because they were mechanically inclined, and they got it running, and they used it around on their farm, not like as a farm transport, just like putting around. They'd go to the store or whatever, and then they parked it in the back of this little, I would consider it like a 2.5 car garage nowadays, but it was like a really tiny horse stable. And there it sat for 70 years probably. And when I was there the last time in 2010, it's like, it's not in an easily accessible, I mean, it's in rural America. So it's not like it's near any highway. So it's like, I knew going there, I had to purposely drive there. Right, it's a Duesenberg. I'm going to go drive there. The last time I was there, 10 something years ago, and nothing had changed. I mean, it was the family still was, there was a whole lineage of family that was still involved. And I mean, like I said, they let me document it, like take some pictures, but that was about it. And they're like, yeah, don't share what this is. I'm like, okay. I'm like,
did it make it into one of your books?
No, I never, like I said, I've never published those pictures or anything like that. Never did that because they're like, no, when we're ready, we'll be ready. And I'm like, okay, let me know.
So I don't forget, tell us your books. Tell us how we can find you, and tell us what you've written.
It's pretty simple. They're right here. I have Amazing Barn Finds and Roadside Relics. That's my first one. That one is out of print, but you can still pick it up on like Amazon and all that. My second one is also, there we go. It's out of print, but I know that Motor Books, who they're published through, does have some, because I buy them every year. It's called Muscle Car Barn Finds. And that one's obviously just muscle cars. It's everything from, like I said, Shelbys and Cudas and Chargers and Camaros. And that one's a little bit of a mix of everything from Model A's to 80s Buick GN type T-types and all kinds of cool stuff.
That's awesome, man. Now, did you have a chance to make it out to the junkyard sale for Sotheby's out there in California where they had all those crazy barn finds?
No, that's one of the ones that I had the ability to go out there, and I was asked to, like, I could go into that preview thing, like where there's only media. There was enough coverage of it that it wouldn't have been worth it for me.
Right.
And like I said, it's a known quantity. It's the pictures are online, the videos are done by other people. I wouldn't be adding anything to that. So it's like, it's fine. I mean, I found enough crazy stuff in my time that that's not going to add anything overall.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I just realized I have two BarnFinds within like 3 miles of my place, a mile away, literally a mile away. It's like I think it's a 68 Cougar, but it's the rare one, like the
Eliminator?
The 7-liter with the 427. They only made like 350 of them.
Well, they made the 7-liter in a few. They made it in the XR7. They had a 7-liter that was a bare bones one. But yeah, the 7-liter overall was a very rare engine in that lineup.
GTE, I think is what it was called.
Okay, yep, that was one of the models with it.
Yep, and then unfortunately, there's a Camaro, 67 Camaro, covered up in this barn. It's literally in a barn. I'll overlay a picture here, and I always wondered for years, what is that? What is that? And finally, they had a garage sale, and I went to the garage and I asked, I'm like, what is that Camaro back there? And she's like, oh, it's my sister's. We'll never get rid of that. That's worth so much money. Blah blah blah. I said, well, can I take a look at it? And I looked at it, 6-cylinder convertible. Rusted, horrible. Like the rust was halfway up the quarter panel. I'm like, if it's halfway up the quarter panel, this whole car's gone. And that was before they covered it up. So now it's covered up, and it's just sad to see that. It's not worth anything as it is.
But it's funny that sometimes some of the craziest finds happen right next door, and you don't even know. Like I've been hunting cars for over a decade now, and my friend Mitch calls me up the other day, or last year now. He goes, hey, I just pulled a 71 Challenger RT, bright yellow, Citroen yellow 340 car, literally 5 miles from your house.
Yeah.
And the guy was actually an SCCA racer Corvette guy, and he had this when he was a teenager and legitimately stuck it in his backyard next to a boat and just left it there for 40 years, basically. It was just under 5 miles from my house. I'm like, how is that? I love 71 Challengers. I have a 71 Challenger. And an RT 340, those are the best handling. 5 miles from my house. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, when I first came on with RM, I was chasing all those crazy leads. Apparently there's, supposedly, I don't think it's still there, but a Thunderbolt under a tarp behind a chain link fence somewhere in Dayton, Ohio, where you can see it. Like you can, you can't, it's covered up, but if you know what you're looking at, it's like, oh, that looks like a Thunderbolt,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll give you one thing I've seen. I've seen the picture. Mike, if you're listening, please forgive me, but I've seen the picture. There's a picture, and apparently it was recent, within the last 5 years, a picture of a 59 or 60 Ferrari California Spider.
Ooh, that's cool.
In a field. And at the time of the picture, it was being lifted up with a forklift.
Oh, no.
Apparently, the guy he was a known collector back in the 70s, some Gull Wings. And when those were sold, it was public. But apparently, this car is still out there. So,
a friend of mine has hanging from his ceiling a Mercedes 190 SL. The little, not the 300, but the 190. And it's hanging from chains from his ceiling.
Oh, my goodness.
It's absolutely great. I walk in, I'm like, that's a new one.
Yeah, I was in a big collection the other day, and he had an original Devon fiberglass body, like an original one, hanging on the wall as wall art. And he's like, yeah, I don't think the Devon people know I have that. Like, oh, wow, okay. Well, that's cool. I got to get going here, but tell me, what's the best way for listeners to follow you on YouTube and Instagram and all those fun places?
Well, I whore myself out everywhere, so I'm on all the social media platforms under usually the Auto Archaeologist. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even though I'm not there much anymore. Or either the Auto Archaeologist or Auto Archaeology on like YouTube, Twitter.
Well, I'll put the links to your YouTube and your Instagram in the description here. And if I can find your books, I'll put a link on those as well.
Yep, and I appreciate it.
Let's have you on again to talk about some incredible barn finds, okay?
Yeah, we never even touched on McCacken. We got a lot of cool stuff to catch up on.
You know what? We'll just make it part 2. How about that?
Sounds good.